My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. Every single person in this video checked into a hotel thinking they were safe. They locked the door. They slid the deadbolt. They trusted the system. And something still got in. This isn't about ghosts. It's not about urban legends. It's about ordinary places. Beige walls, patterned carpets, ice machines humming at 2 a.m. Places you've stayed. Places you'll stay again. Hotels are built on trust. You trust the front desk. You trust the key card. You trust that no one else has access to your room. But what happens when that trust isn't broken loudly, just quietly adjusted? Tonight, you're going to hear multiple real travel accounts. Different cities, different years, different people. But the same pattern. Footsteps stopping outside a door with no knock. Key cards that shouldn't work, but do. Closet doors that move when no one is inside. Security cameras that are always under maintenance. Smoke detectors that might not just detect smoke. And the most unsettling part, not one of these stories ends with police sirens. Not one ends with dramatic confrontation. They end with something worse. Systems denying what happened. Staff redirecting questions. Records that quietly correct themselves. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't the person outside your door. It's the people telling you nothing is wrong. If you travel, if you've ever stayed alone in a hotel, if you've ever woken up at 2 a.m. and listened to hallway silence, stay with me. By the end of this video, you won't check into a room the same way again. And before we begin, if you're new here, this is Fear Spiral, where ordinary situations unravel into something deeply unsettling. We don't chase cheap jump scares. We explore the slow realization that something is wrong, long before anyone admits it. If that's your kind of story, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video so more people can find it. And when we're done, tell me in the comments which moment made your stomach drop. Now, lock your door, lower the lights, and listen carefully, because once you realize how easily access can be granted, you never really sleep the same again. The footsteps, the wrong room, and the door that tested back. My name is Mark. I'm 51 years old, and my job is walking into other people's problems without adding emotion to the mix. I'm an insurance adjuster. Storm damage, structural assessments, commercial properties with water where it doesn't belong. My job isn't to dramatize, it's to document. I take photos. I measure impact patterns. I write reports that hold up in court if they need to. After 3 decades of that, you develop a habit. You separate what you feel from what you can prove. Emotion clouds judgment. Details don't. That's why what happened in December 2014 bothers me the way it does, because the details don't add up. PBLO, December 2014. Hail damage. Exterior commercial claim. 2 days, 1 overnight stay. I checked into a mid-range roadside hotel near the highway. Beige exterior. Functional lobby, the kind of place designed to disappear from memory the moment you check out. I arrived around 7:00 p.m. The lobby smelled faintly burnt, old coffee and overused air freshener. The desk clerk was polite in that mechanical way that suggests long shifts and minimal pay. She slid my key card across the counter and reminded me breakfast started at 6. Room 214. Second floor. Corner unit at the end of a long hallway. As I walked down the corridor, my brain did what it always does. Catalogued exits, camera placements, lighting inconsistencies. There was a dome camera near the stairwell. I noticed the fire exit map on the back of my door once I stepped inside. The deadbolt hardware looked newer than the handle. None of that meant anything. It was just habit. I ordered takeout. Ate sitting on the edge of the bed while reviewing photos from the claim. Dented siding, granule loss on shingles, clean documentation, predictable. I laid out clothes for the morning, plugged my phone in, set my alarm for 5:45 a.m. A boring night. Exactly what I wanted. 11:30 p.m., Footsteps in hotel hallways are louder than people think. Sound bounces off doors, carpets, walls. Someone walked down the corridor outside my room. Normal. Someone stopped. Outside my door. Also normal. Sometimes people check numbers. The footsteps stayed there longer than expected. No keycard beep, no fumbling, no muttering. Just standing. After about 30 seconds, the steps continued down the hall. I told myself the simplest explanation. Wrong room. Boring explanations. 10 minutes later, the footsteps returned. Stopped again. This time, I stood and looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. Distorted by the lens, but empty. When I cracked the door slightly and looked down, I saw faint scuffing on the carpet. The kind you get when someone shifts their weight in one place. Still explainable. Still nothing to escalate. 12:04 a.m. The third time wasn't the same. Footsteps. Stop. Directly outside my door. Then, a metallic rattle. Short. Testing. Not a knock. Not force. A handle being checked. I sat upright immediately. Another brief rattle. Then silence. I called the front desk. I kept my voice even. Calm, descriptive. I'm in 214. Someone has stopped outside my door multiple times, and it just sounded like someone testing door handles. There was a pause, not startled. More like someone processing information. Okay, the clerk said slowly. Let me have security call you. Less than a minute later, my room phone rang. Different voice. Older, sir, what room are you in? 214. A pause. Longer this time. I need you to stay inside your room for the rest of the night. I blinked. Why? It's just safer. No reassurance. No explanation. No mention of checking the hallway. Should I leave? I asked. I can drive somewhere else, he said immediately. Do not leave. That was the moment something shifted. Precaution sounds calm. Containment sounds controlled. This was controlled. Are police involved? I asked. Not yet. Then he added, lock your door. Use the deadbolt. Do not open it for anyone until morning. Not staff. Not housekeeping. If anyone claims to be hotel personnel, call us first. That wasn't standard policy. That was response to something already in motion. 12:22 a.m. 15 minutes later, the footsteps returned. Stopped directly outside my door. Didn't move. I didn't check the peephole this time. I listened. There was breathing. Faint. Close to the door. No knocking. No attempt to enter. Just presence. Wrong room guests knock. Drunk guests mutter. Confused guests argue with their keycards. This was none of that. Then I heard a radio crackle somewhere down the hall. Static burst. Low voice I couldn't make out. The breathing stopped. Footsteps retreated. Not hurried. Purposeful, like someone who knew exactly where they were going. After that, nothing. Silence. I stayed awake fully dressed with my keys in my hand. Not as a weapon, just because keys mean mobility. Around dawn, normal hotel sounds resumed. Toilets flushing. Doors opening. Muted televisions. Then, 2 firm knocks. Security, it's clear. I didn't open immediately. I called the front desk to confirm. They confirmed. The guard stood in the hallway with hands visible. Neutral posture. No apology. What happened? I asked. He avoided eye contact. Someone who shouldn't have been on that floor. That's all. That's all I can say. At checkout, the desk clerk acted like nothing had happened, printed my receipt, asked how my stay was. Routine. Weeks later, I realized what unsettled me most. It wasn't the footsteps. It wasn't the breathing. It was being told that the safest thing I could do was stay still and stop asking questions. In my line of work, when professionals restrict movement without explanation, it means something has already gone wrong. And that was just the first hotel. Because 2 years later, in Little Rock, Someone checked into a room that wasn't supposed to exist, and the system insisted it never had. Little Rock, August 2016. If you've never worked large events, let me explain something simple. Your brain never shuts off. It doesn't rest. It powers down. You replay timelines in your sleep. You count chairs. You calculate catering margins. You wake up wondering if a vendor sent an email at 1:13 a.m. that somehow became your responsibility. That was me in Little Rock in August 2016. Mid-size corporate conference. 2 straight days on caffeine and adrenaline. Badge printers jamming. Panelists running late. Microphones cutting out during rehearsals. By the time I checked into the hotel, I had been awake since before sunrise. The lobby was loud. Conference badges everywhere. Rolling suitcases, laughter from the bar. Normal chaos. The kind that feels safe because nothing stands out. At the front desk, the clerk clicked through my reservation and frowned. "We're pretty full," she said. Then she smiled. "But I can put you in a quieter room away from the elevators. Quiet is currency when you work events." She handed me my key card, circled the Wi-Fi password, pointed me toward the elevators. Everything felt efficient, normal, forgettable. The hallway, the elevator ride was uneventful. But when I stepped out and turned toward my room, something shifted. The lighting was dimmer than the rest of the floor, not dramatically, just enough to notice. The carpet looked newer, less worn, the air heavier. I glanced up. A camera dome near the ceiling. It wasn't pointed down the hallway, it was angled toward the wall. I paused. Maintenance issue, I told myself. Not everything is sinister. My room was at the very end of the corridor. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Not dirty, not moldy. Unused, like air that had been circulating without anyone breathing in it for a while. The room looked clean, bed made tight, bathroom spotless, but it didn't feel occupied. I dropped my bag and did what I always do. Windows, bathroom, closet. Habit, not paranoia. I picked up the room phone to request an extra pillow. No dial tone. Pressed buttons. Nothing. Annoying, but not alarming. I made a mental note to mention it in the morning. Minor inconsistencies stacked up quietly. The channel guide didn't match what was playing. The remote looked older than the TV. The latch plate on the door looked newer than the handle. Clean screws. Different wear pattern. Hotels fix things quietly, I reminded myself. It's cheaper that way. Exhaustion 1. I slept hard. Morning at breakfast, I mentioned the phone casually. "Hey, just a heads up. My room phone didn't work." The clerk stopped typing. "What room were you in?" I told him. He didn't nod. Didn't apologize. "I'll let maintenance know." Tone neutral. But wrong. I had a full day of work. I let it go. Night 2, the event ran long. As they always do, by the time I returned, the lobby was still lively, still reassuringly normal. In the elevator, a maintenance worker stepped in just before the doors closed. Keys clipped to his belt. Smelled like industrial cleaner. Halfway up, without looking at me, he said, "You're in the room at the end of the hall, right?" My stomach tightened slightly. "Yes. That room shouldn't be assigned." "What do you mean?" "It's been offline." "Offline how?" He hesitated. "Due to an incident." The elevator stopped. He stepped out. No elaboration. No eye contact. Just gone. The door, the hallway seemed dimmer than the night before. The camera dome still gled wrong. I swiped my key card. Red light. Swiped again. Red. I stood there longer than I should have. Then, footsteps behind me. A security guard. Close. Too close for someone who had walked up normally. "Can I help you?" "This is my room," I said. "The card worked last night." "What room number?" I told him. He shook his head. "That's not your assigned room. I slept here. Your reservation shows a different room." He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just waited. At the front desk, the clerk turned the screen slightly. Different room number, different floor, different wing. I have my belongings in that room, I said. Housekeeping will assist. The security guard stood just near enough to remind me I wasn't in control. They escorted me upstairs. Housekeeping entered first. When they stepped aside, my things were already bagged, neatly placed near the door. I don't remember packing them, and I packed methodically. I looked around the room. No signs of disturbance. No smell. No indication anyone had ever slept there. I was moved to another room. Normal lighting. Working phone. Hardware that matched. Documentation that aligned. Everything neat. At checkout, my folio listed only the correct room. No record of the other one. No explanation. No apology. What bothers me? I plan events for a living. My entire job depends on documentation. Logs. Records. Schedules. Proof. That night taught me something uncomfortable. Systems can be corrected quietly. Records can be adjusted. If something had happened in that room, the paperwork would have shown I was never there, and that thought stayed with me longer than the dim hallway, because when documentation disappears, accountability does too. And if that wasn't unsettling enough, 3 years later in Dayton, someone tried my door. Twice, and the hotel insisted no one had access. Dayton, Ohio, March 2019. By 2019, hotels had red together for me. Same carpet patterns, same laminated evacuation map on the back of the door, same keycard sleeves with Wi-Fi passwords printed too small to read without squinting. I don't care about decor. I care about silence. This was a 2-night work trip in Dayton. Client meetings, solo dinner, early checkout. I'd booked a mid-range chain near the highway. Predictable, consistent, forgettable. The lobby felt busy but calm. Families checking in. A man pacing with his phone pressed to his ear. Sports playing silently on the TV. Normal noise, normal energy. My room was on the 3rd floor, near the end of a long hallway. The kind where footsteps echo whether you want them to or not. I dropped my bag, lined my shoes neatly by the door, plugged my phone into the charger, left the bathroom nightlight on, and went to sleep. I'm methodical like that. 12:41 a.m. The sound woke me instantly. Beep. Click. If you travel, you recognize it immediately. A key card being accepted. I opened my eyes and waited for the rest of the sequence to make sense. Then the handle dipped. Stopped. The swing bar was engaged. What hit me wasn't panic. It was confusion. No apology. No startled reaction. No footsteps retreating. Just silence pressed against the other side of the door. I sat up slowly and checked the time. 12:41 a.m. After a minute, I stood and looked through the peephole. Bright hallway, empty. I told myself it was a wrong room. Then it happened again. Beep. Click. The handle moved again. Held longer this time, like someone leaning into it. Then released. Still no footsteps. That's when calm started thinning. The call I called the front desk. The night clerk answered quickly, overly upbeat in that forced overnight tone. I explained without accusation, just described the sounds, the handle movement. He paused. I don't see any duplicate keys issued for your room. I'm not Ying there should be, I replied evenly. I'm saying someone tried my door. He said security would check the hallway. No one came. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I called again. This time he sounded irritated. The locks glitch sometimes. A glitch doesn't move the handle, I said. He didn't argue, just repeated that security was aware. I didn't wait anymore. At 1 a.m., in a city I didn't know, I took the elevator down to the lobby. In person, the clerk looked young. Early 20s, energy drink on the counter. One earbud in. I repeated what happened. He kept his expression neutral. No duplicate keys issued. And the hallway cameras? I asked. Down for maintenance. All of them? Yes. Quick answer. Too quick. I asked for a room change. We're fully booked. I looked around the lobby. It was quiet. No visible crowd. No overflow of guests waiting for rooms. But arguing at 1 a.m. doesn't fix anything. I went back upstairs. My own precautions. Back in the room. I wedged the desk chair under the handle. Not because it would stop someone determined, but because it would make noise. I left all the lights on, sat on the bed fully dressed, phone in my hand. 2:07 a.m. beep. Click. This time the handle didn't test gently. It pulled harder. Once. Then again. The swing bar rattled. Then stopped. No running footsteps. No apology. Just silence. I didn't sleep after that. I sat staring at the door until dawn turned the edges of the curtains gray. Morning, different clerk at the desk. Different tone. But the same answer. No duplicate keys. Secure system. Cameras down for maintenance. I asked for a manager. He appeared with the same calm smile and the same explanation. I watched his eyes while he spoke. He wasn't confused. He wasn't concerned. He was managing. When I checked out, the clerk printed my receipt and slid it across the counter. As I picked it up, she glanced toward the manager's office. Quick, subtle, then looked down again. That small movement stuck with me. Weeks later, I searched online. Hotel name plus phrases like keycard and door unlocking. Different guests, different dates, same description, same replies. No duplicates. Cameras down. I don't know what was happening in that building, but I don't trust that chain anymore. Because once you realize a system can grant access and deny it in the same sentence, you never hear a key card beep the same way again. And if you think that's the worst of it, you're wrong. Because sometimes nothing beeps, nothing rattles, nothing forces entry. Sometimes the door stays locked, and someone still comes inside. The Closet Door, Madison, Wisconsin, October 2018. I was 22. First time staying in a hotel completely alone. Not the family version with 2 beds and the TV too loud. Not sharing a room. Not someone else's credit card on file. My name, my reservation, my responsibility. I told myself that didn't matter. I was in Madison for a campus event. Just one night. I booked a basic chain hotel near the highway. Nothing fancy, nothing sketchy. The lobby TV was playing a game behind the front desk. People in hoodies moved in and out casually. Normal. I remember thinking that word specifically. Good. Nothing weird. The room. 4th floor. Halfway down the hall. The lighting was that soft yellow that makes everything feel slightly unreal. My footsteps sounded louder than they should have. Inside, the room looked exactly like the website photos. Tight bed, bolted TV, small desk no one ever uses, sliding closet door by the bathroom, the kind that never glides smoothly. I tossed my bag on the bed and did what I told myself was being smart, not paranoid. Checked the window lock, checked the deadbolt, checked the chain. Then I looked at the closet. I had heard enough stories online to make it a habit. I even laughed at myself while I did it. Like humor cancels fear. I slid the door open. 2 hangers. Extra blanket. Wall safe. Nothing else. When I closed it, the door caught in the track. It always did. I had to push a little harder at the end for it to fully shut. I remember that clearly, because I did it twice. Once normally, once again just to be sure. Morning, I slept deeper than I expected. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed wasn't the light. It was the closet door. Open a few inches, not wide, not dramatic. Just enough to notice. My first thought was automatic. Maybe I didn't close it. My second thought came faster. No, it sticks. I sat up and stared at it. Waiting, my brain started building easy explanations. Air pressure, building settling, imagination. Then I smelled it. Faint, wrong, cologne. Not mine, I barely wore any at that age. I checked my belongings immediately. Wallet, phone, keys, cash, everything there. Nothing missing. And that made it worse. If something had been stolen, I could have filed it away neatly. Motive, crime. Explanation meant what? Someone came in and didn't need anything. Testing it. I walked to the closet and pushed the door shut. It caught in the same spot as the night before. I opened it again. Closed it again. It didn't drift. It didn't slide. If it was open, someone had moved it. I checked the door locks. Deadbolt still engaged. Chain still hanging properly, which meant one of two things. No one came through the door, or someone had a key. I told myself I was overreacting. I went through my day anyway. Interviews, small talk, pretending to be confident. But that smell stayed in my head. Night 2. When I came back that evening, I stood in front of the closet for longer than I'd like to admit. Then I did something that felt ridiculous and necessary at the same time. I tore a strip from the hotel notepad, slid it into the crack of the closet door so it stuck out slightly. A tell. If the door opened, the paper would fall. I placed the Do Not Disturb sign on the outer door handle, like drawing a boundary. I left the bathroom light on, and I slept. Morning, the paper was on the carpet. The closet door was open again, and the cologne smell was stronger. I got dressed quickly. The room didn't look disturbed. It looked careful, like someone had made sure not to leave a mess. At the front desk, I tried to sound calm. Hey, this is probably nothing, but I think someone came into my room overnight. The clerk didn't look surprised. That bothered me most. Housekeeping might have come in early, he said. I had the Do Not Disturb sign up. He shrugged, like it was a suggestion, not a boundary. I explained the closet, the smell, the paper strip. He didn't dismiss me, but he didn't investigate either. You want to switch rooms? Yes. Fast. He handed me a new keycard. No further questions. No report written. No manager called. Just a quiet relocation. The elevator, I went upstairs to grab my things. The hallway felt different. Inside the room, everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. It felt handled. In the elevator on the way down, the air shifted, and I smelled it again. Stronger. It wasn't on my clothes. It wasn't trailing from the room. It was already in the elevator. At the next floor, a guy stepped in. Hoodie. Hat low. Hands in pockets. Normal enough that it didn't help. The cologne intensified. I didn't look at him. I stared at the floor numbers. When the elevator reached the lobby, I stepped out. He stayed. The doors closed. Carried him back up. I turned in my old key. Took the new one. Left early the next morning. No breakfast. No lingering. For a long time, I didn't tell anyone the full story, because my closet door kept opening and I smelled cologne. Sounds ridiculous. But I know what I know. That door didn't drift. Nothing was taken, which means the point wasn't theft. The point was access. And once you realize someone can enter your room, leave no trace, and the system shrugs. You never sleep the same in hotels again. But even that wasn't the worst one, because sometimes it isn't about someone testing your door. Sometimes it isn't about someone entering silently. Sometimes your room shows up on a screen from above, and you're not the one holding the camera. The room that watched back, Reno, one night only. I'm not the kind of person who jumps at every hotel noise. I've heard ice machines scream at 2 a.m. I've heard arguments through thin walls. I've heard kids sprinting down hallways like it's a track meet. None of that is a story. This is a story, because at 3:07 a.m., the TV in my hotel room turned on by itself, and for a few seconds, it showed my room. Not a movie, not a welcome screen, not cable static. My room, from above. I was in Reno for one night, quick work trip, property dispute. Long day of talking through insurance language with a stressed-out owner who wanted answers faster than policies allow. The hotel was mid-range. Clean enough, generic desert art on the walls, carpet designed to hide stains, the kind of place that blends into memory before you even leave. Nothing remarkable. Inside the room, everything looked normal. Cheap but functional fixtures. Bathroom nightlight casting a soft orange glow. Bed centered against the wall. One detail registered faintly when I arrived. The smoke detector on the ceiling looked newer than everything else. Bright white plastic. No dust ring. Cleaner than the vent nearby. I remember thinking, at least they maintain something. I ate takeout on the bed. Scrolled through emails. Set 2 alarms. TV off. Curtains mostly closed. Door deadbolted. Routine. At some point in the night, I rolled over and half woke to that specific kind of silence hotels have after midnight. Then, the TV exploded into static. Loud. Sharp. Enough to jerk me fully upright. Blue-white light flooded the room. I grabbed the remote blindly and hit power. The static cut. The screen went black. Then, the image came back. Grainy. High angle. I saw my bed, the door, the bathroom entrance, and myself, sitting up, under the covers, staring at the television. The angle wasn't from outside. It wasn't hallway footage. It was from inside the room, mounted high. Looking down, the framing was too perfect. Bed centered, door centered, bathroom in frame. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. Long enough to understand what I was seeing. Long enough to feel my stomach drop in a way that bypassed panic and went straight to cold clarity. Then it cut to black, and the normal hotel welcome screen appeared. Cheerful icons, room number, generic menu, like nothing happened. I sat there holding the remote. My first thought was the dumbest possible one. Did I cast something accidentally? I looked at my phone. Screen dark. No apps open. No Bluetooth devices active. I turned the TV off, back on. Normal menu. Clicked through inputs. HDMI. Cable. Nothing unusual. Then I stood up and looked around the room like someone might still be there. My eyes went straight to the ceiling, to the smoke detector. From the bed, it looked ordinary. From directly beneath it, it wasn't perfectly centered. It was slightly rotated. Just enough. And underneath it, barely visible, a tiny dark dot, pin-sized, not matching the plastic. I dragged the desk chair over and stood on it, close enough to see the ceiling paint around the detector. There was a faint scratch near the edge. Fresh, no dust inside the line, like a tool had slipped recently. I didn't touch it. I didn't pry at it. I just stared and started doing math in my head. If that's a camera, someone installed it. If someone installed it, they have access. If they have access, voice steady. I'm in room 215. My TV just turned on by itself and showed what looked like a camera feed of my room. Pause. Not the kind where they're checking your reservation. The kind where they're deciding what to say. That's not possible, the clerk said. I waited. Well, it happened. What did it show? My room. Another pause. Ma'am, there aren't cameras in the rooms. I didn't say there were, I replied evenly. I'm telling you what I saw. He shifted into that polished customer service tone. Sometimes the cable glitches. It can pull strange channels. It wasn't a channel, I said. It was a live angle from above my bed. Silence. Then, I can send maintenance in the morning. I want to switch rooms. We're pretty full tonight. At that exact moment, the TV flickered again behind me. Static for half a second, then black. Then the hotel menu. And above me, a tiny mechanical click. Soft, like something powering down. I stood there with my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over emergency services, doing another kind of math. Is it safer to call the front desk again and sound irrational, or call authorities and explain something that sounds impossible? The clerk came back on the line. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't move you tonight. I didn't argue. I turned on every light in the room. Bathroom, desk, entryway. I sat on the bed in my shoes and coat and waited for sunrise. Nothing else happened, which almost made it worse because it felt like someone had seen enough. At 6:30 a.m., I checked out early. The lobby smelled like coffee. Morning news playing. A man in a suit scrolling his phone. Normal, I asked casually at the desk. How long has the smoke detector in 215 been there? Blink. I don't know. Was it replaced recently? Typing. It says recently. Recently like last week? Pause. It just says recently. I nodded, took my receipt, left. Here's what stays with me. Not the static, not the image. The click. That soft mechanical click above my head when the feed shut off. That meant something in the ceiling was active, and someone had control over it. I've spent my career trusting systems, locks, logs, policies, procedures, but every one of these hotels had something in common. When something didn't add up, they didn't investigate. They redirected. They corrected paperwork, adjusted tone, restricted movement, smiled calmly. Because when the people in charge deny what you're seeing with your own eyes, they're not confused. They're managing you. And once you realize that, every key card beep sounds different. Every camera dome looks slightly off. Every smoke detector feels like it's pointed at you. When access follows you home, you can dismiss one incident. You can rationalize two. By the third, you start adjusting your behavior. By the fourth, it isn't about the hotel anymore. It's about pattern recognition. After Reno, I changed how I travel. I photograph smoke detectors now. I cover vents with a strip of tape. I wedge objects under door handles. I test phones. I scan ceilings. Not dramatically, not obsessively. The way someone adjusts after learning a system has blind spots. What I didn't expect was for the pattern to stop being contained to hotels. Because once you understand how access works, you start seeing it everywhere. The storage unit, 2 months after Reno, I rented a temporary storage unit while renovating my kitchen. Climate-controlled facility. Keypad entry. Security cameras posted every 10 feet. Corporate chain with clean branding and polished floors. The manager walked me through the process. Unique access code, individual unit lock. Recorded entry logs. Everything is tracked, she said proudly. That phrase again. Everything is tracked. I stored tools, boxes of paperwork, spare appliances. Nothing sentimental, nothing irreplaceable. One evening I stopped by after work. Entered my code. Gate opened. Drove in. Normal, my unit was down a long interior corridor. When I unlocked it, something felt off immediately. Not messy, not robbed. Just adjusted. Boxes shifted slightly. Tape resealed differently. One bin lid rotated 90 degrees. Subtle enough that someone else might not notice. But I packed the same way every time. I stepped inside and looked around. Nothing missing. No broken lock. No forced entry. I locked it again and went to the front desk. Can you check if my unit was accessed today? The manager typed, Nope. No one but you. Can you check the camera for my hallway? We don't give out footage, she said quickly, but there haven't been any issues. There it was again. No duplicate access. No issues. System secure. I drove home unsettled. The next day I returned without opening the gate. I parked across the street and watched. 37 minutes later, a maintenance truck exited. Driver didn't look at the gate keypad. The barrier lifted automatically. Internal override. That doesn't mean he accessed my unit, but it means access exists beyond the code. And when access exists, Logs don't always tell the whole story. I emptied the unit that weekend. The rideshare access isn't always physical. Sometimes it's informational. Late 2002, airport trip. I booked a rideshare like I had dozens of times before. Car arrived. Driver polite. Conversation minimal. Routine. Halfway through the ride, my phone buzzed. A notification. Driver has updated the route. I looked at the map. The path shifted slightly. Added 2 turns. Is there traffic? I asked casually. No, he said. Shortcut. The map showed a quieter residential stretch instead of the main road. Not isolated, but darker, less visible. I didn't accuse. I didn't escalate. I opened the in-app emergency assistance screen quietly. The route corrected within 30 seconds. No apology. No explanation. Just back to the original path. At the airport drop-off, he said, "Good thing we didn't take that other road. It's poorly lit." I stepped out without responding. Later, I checked the trip summary. Original route listed. No deviation recorded. Access. Adjustment. Correction. No log. The package the first time it happened. I assumed coincidence. Online order delivered while I was home. Notification buzzed. Delivered. I opened my door immediately. Nothing there. Checked the camera footage from my porch. A vehicle slowed. Stopped. A person walked toward the door. Bended slightly. Then left. No package placed. Footage clear. Time stamped. I waited 15 minutes. The package appeared. No notification. No second alert. Just suddenly there. Box positioned neatly. Camera footage. The gap between delivered and appearance had a 10-second glitch. Corrupted segment. Maybe a technical error. Maybe not. Customer service response. We show successful delivery. Recognition. Here's what changes when you experience repeated inconsistencies. You start noticing friction. Moments where reality and documentation don't align perfectly. Moments where authority reassures instead of investigates. Moments where movement is restricted for your safety. It doesn't mean there's a conspiracy. It means systems are built to protect themselves first. Hotels, storage facilities, rideshare platforms, delivery services. They rely on trust, and trust relies on records. But records are curated, edited, managed, optimized. The pattern. Let's strip the emotion away. Footsteps outside a hotel door. Room assignment erased. Keycard access denied but handle moved. Closet opened without theft. Camera feed displayed then dismissed. Storage unit adjusted without log. Route altered then corrected. Package delivered before arrival. Individually explainable. Together, they form a pattern built around one word. Access. Not forced entry. Not chaos. Access denied publicly. Access erased officially. That's the part that unsettles me. Not that something happened, but that the response was always smoother than the event. No raised voices. No investigations. Just calm denial. And calm denial is more dangerous than panic, because it admits something's wrong. Calm denial manages perception. What changed? I still travel. I still stay in hotels. But I don't assume neutrality anymore. I assume systems are imperfect. I assume logs can be incomplete. I assume reassurance is sometimes a strategy. That doesn't mean fear controls me. It means awareness does. If a door handle moves, I document it. If a smoke detector looks new, I photograph it. If a clerk pauses too long, I remember it. Not because I expect something to happen, but because I know how easily something can be explained away. And here's the part most people don't like to admit. We don't fear the stranger outside the door. We fear losing control of the narrative. We fear becoming an entry that never existed, a room never assigned, a key never duplicated, a camera never installed, a route never altered. Because once your experience can be erased by a database, you're left with nothing but memory. And memory doesn't print receipts. If you've made it this far, ask yourself something simple. How many times have you trusted a system because it sounded confident? How many times have you accepted "that's not possible" as an answer? How many times did you stop pushing because you felt unreasonable? That's how the spiral begins. Not with something dramatic, with something subtle. A beep, a click, a pause, a shrug, and the realization that access isn't always about breaking in. Sometimes. Here's the truth no one tells you. The world doesn't become frightening all at once. It shifts, quietly. A door handle turns but doesn't open. A room number disappears from a screen. A key card that shouldn't work does. A route changes and then changes back. A package arrives before it exists. Individually, they're small, harmless, explainable. Together, they create friction between what you experienced and what the system insists happened. And that friction is where fear lives. Not in monsters, not in jump scares, not in dramatic confrontations, but in calm denial, in polite smiles that say, "That's not possible," in perfectly rehearsed reassurances, in logs that show nothing unusual, because when a system tells you something didn't happen, and you know it did, you're left alone with your memory. And memory doesn't come with receipts. That's the part that lingers long after checkout. You can replace a lock, you can change hotels, you can delete an app, but you can't unlearn the realization that access exists beyond what you see. And once you understand that, once you've felt that subtle shift, you start noticing it everywhere. You notice how quickly concerns are redirected, how smoothly explanations arrive, how easily your experience becomes unlucky. That's the spiral. Not panic, not paranoia. Awareness, a slow, creeping awareness that systems are built to protect themselves first. Does that mean something sinister is always happening? No, but it means blind trust is a choice. And tonight, you chose not to look away. If even one moment in this story made your stomach drop, if you've ever felt that quiet disconnect between what happened and what you were told happened, tell me in the comments. What was your moment? What made you pause? Your story might be someone else's confirmation that they weren't imagining things. And if this kind of slow burn, psychological unraveling is your kind of content, if you prefer tension over noise, pattern over chaos, then this is exactly what we do here on Fear Spiral. Subscribe so you don't miss the next descent. Like this video so it reaches someone who needs to hear it. And share it with someone who travels often, someone who trusts systems a little too easily. Because the scariest stories aren't about what breaks in, they're about what already has access. Thank you for staying until the end.